All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into something that you should know more about, but you probably don't have the time to really get into, and that's the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
You sent us the whole thing,
Yeah.
all the articles, the amendments, the whole shebang,
Yeah.
and we're going to break it down. We're going to really try to extract the really important stuff and present it to you in a way that is fun and easy to digest.
Exactly. We're going to make this a crash course in American governance.
Exactly.
Whether you're just curious about it or you're prepping for some kind of debate.
Oh, yeah.
This is the deep dive for you.
This is it.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, the Constitution kind of throws down the gauntlet with the preamble, we the people and all that. It's not just some poetic,
Right.
Flourish there. It's really laying out these 6 goals, like a mission statement for the entire country. So you've got a more perfect union, justice, domestic tranquility, the common defense, the general welfare, and
the blessings of liberty.
secure the blessings of liberty. So these weren't just like lofty ideals that they just threw out there. They were actually baked into the entire structure of our government.
Absolutely. The rest of the Constitution, with the articles laying out the different branches of government, it's almost like the blueprint to achieving these goals, the how to the preamble's why.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. Okay, so that brings us to Article I.
Okay.
This is the legislative branch. This is where things get real because this is Congress. These are the people who make our laws.
That's right. Yeah.
And what always gets me is this balance they strike between giving people a voice, but also making sure that power isn't too concentrated.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we see the House of Representatives. Yeah. These are the folks that are elected.
Every 2 years?
Every 2 years.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to be very responsive to the will of the people.
Yeah.
And that's also why they're the ones get to initiate all the spending bills.
Right. Oh, right. Because of no taxation without representation.
Exactly. That's where that comes from.
Right. And then you have the Senate with their 6-year terms.
That's right. They're supposed to be the cooler heads prevailing.
Yeah.
Right. Thinking more long-term, thinking about the bigger picture.
Yeah. So you've got this really nice system of checks and balances, right?
Exactly.
Where the House is reacting to the immediate needs and the Senate's kind of looking at the broader consequences, like a constant conversation between the present and the future.
That's a great way to put it.
All right. So now we have to address, I think, when we're talking about Article I, the elephant in the room.
Okay.
And that is the 3/5 compromise.
Yeah.
This is a tough part of our history, but it's a reminder of how far we've come as a nation, but also just how ingrained slavery was at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. So when they were trying to figure out representation in the House, they had to deal with the question of, well, how do we count enslaved people? And the compromise that each enslaved person would count as 3/5 of a free person for representation.
Yeah.
It really speaks to the really difficult moral compromises they had to make at the time.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that the Constitution, while it does enshrine so many of the ideals that we cherish today, also reflects the imperfections of when it was written.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a document that's evolved and continues to evolve as our understanding of justice and equality evolves.
Exactly. Okay. Let's move on to Article II. This is the executive branch where we meet the big cheese, the president.
That's right.
And Article II lays out, the powers and responsibilities of the president, but also, importantly, how they're elected.
Yes.
And you can't talk about presidential elections without talking about...
The Electoral College.
Yeah, the Electoral College. That's always good for...
It's a hot topic.
Yeah. Especially after the last few elections. So, most people know that it exists, but it's the why that I think is really interesting.
Exactly. Why didn't they just go with the popular vote?
Yeah. Why all this rigmarole with the electors and all that?
Well, the framers, they were very worried about mob rule. They wanted a system that would ensure a thoughtful, deliberative choice for president.
Okay.
So they envisioned this group of informed citizens who would choose the best candidate, even if they weren't the most popular.
So it was all about making sure the president had broad support.
Exactly.
Not just the backing of like one faction or region or...
Exactly. It was trying to balance the interests of different states.
Yeah.
Prevent a candidate from winning just based on a few densely populated areas. Now, of course, how the Electoral College functions today with political parties and this winner-take-all system,
Yeah.
it's not exactly what they had in mind.
It's definitely led to some debate. But here's another fun fact.
Okay.
You know how we vote for president and vice president as like a ticket? That wasn't always the case.
That's right. So originally, whoever got the most electoral votes was president. The runner-up became vice president.
Oh, wow.
And this actually led to some interesting situations early on
Oh, I bet.
where you had political rivals as president, vice president.
So awkward. Cabinet meetings must have been fun.
So that's why the 12th Amendment came about,
Right.
to establish separate votes for president and vice president.
Yeah.
It shows that even the framers didn't get everything perfect on the first try.
No.
And the Constitution has these ways to adapt
Right.
to new realities.
So it really does make you think about how these choices made centuries ago still impact our political landscape today.
Right.
But let's not go too far down that rabbit hole.
Okay.
Let's head over to Article 3 and the judicial branch, which, people...
It's often overlooked.
Yeah, it's not as flashy as the other branches, but it's so important.
Absolutely.
So Article 3 sets up the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And gives Congress the power to create lower federal courts.
That's right. This is really the foundation for the judiciary's role in interpreting the Constitution, making sure that it's applied fairly across the nation.
So we've got the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, but what really sets it apart?
So one of the really key things are lifetime appointments.
Oh, yeah.
Article 3 says that judges serve during good behavior, which essentially means for life.
Yeah.
This is designed to ensure judicial independence.
Right.
Allow judges to make decisions based on the law and not on political pressure.
That's a big deal because that means they can't be easily removed from office.
That's right.
If their rulings are unpopular, right?
Exactly. It protects them from the whims of politics,
Yeah.
encourages them to make rulings that are true to the Constitution.
Yeah.
Even if those rulings aren't popular. They're the guardians of the Constitution, so to speak.
It's this amazing idea that you have this separate branch of government, completely insulated from the political fray, and their job is just to make sure everyone plays by the rules. Now, I know the Supreme Court hears some pretty high-profile cases, but not every legal dispute ends up there, right?
That's right. Article 3 also outlines the types of cases that federal courts can hear. So this includes cases involving federal laws, treaties, disputes between states. But there's also this concept of original jurisdiction.
Original jurisdiction. That sounds intense.
Yeah, so that basically means that certain cases can go directly to the Supreme Court.
Oh, wow.
Bypassing those lower courts. So that usually applies to disputes between states or cases involving ambassadors.
Okay, I can see why those would need immediate Supreme Court
attention.
Yeah. So Article 3 lays the groundwork, but the judicial branch has obviously changed over time. I mean, the power of judicial review, where the court can declare laws unconstitutional, that's not even explicitly stated in the Constitution.
You're exactly right. So that's where you really see how the Constitution has evolved through interpretation and legal precedent.
Right.
So the power of judicial review was really solidified in Marbury v. Madison in 1803, which set the stage for the Supreme Court to become this ultimate arbiter of the Constitution.
So the Constitution provides the framework, but it's also been shaped by these big legal decisions throughout history.
Exactly. Shaped and molded by legal minds and societal shifts and political realities.
That's great.
It's a living document, right?
Yeah.
It's constantly being reinterpreted and understood in new ways.
It does make you wonder how the framers would view the Supreme Court and its influence today. That's a question for another time.
Yeah, that's a big question.
I think we need to pause here for a breath. We've covered a lot of ground.
Absolutely. We'll be back soon with more of our deep dive into the U.S. Constitution.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everybody.
All right, so we're back, and we're ready to dive into more U.S. Constitution.
Yeah, so we left off talking about the Supreme Court and its evolving role, and now we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And look at what sometimes called the nuts and bolts of the Constitution.
Nuts and bolts?
Articles 4 through 7. So they may not be as glamorous as the first 3 articles, but these really lay the groundwork for how our government actually functions.
Okay, so let's get into it. What are we talking about here? States' rights, the amendment process. What's in here?
All of that, yeah. So Article 4 really focuses on the relationship between states.
Okay.
It's kind of like the guide to how states are supposed to interact with each other.
Right.
So it covers things like honoring each other's laws and legal decisions,
Mm-hmm.
which is known as full faith and credit.
Yeah.
It also addresses how new states can join the Union,
Mm-hmm.
and it guarantees every state a Republican form of government.
Ah, states' rights. Always a hot button issue even today.
Right.
I know Article V is the one about amending the Constitution,
That's right.
which, the framers were smart enough to know that they couldn't predict everything,
Yeah.
so they put in a way to adapt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Article V lays out two ways that we can amend the Constitution.
Okay.
You can either have Congress propose amendments,
Mm-hmm.
or you can have a constitutional convention called by the states.
Okay.
But either way, you need a supermajority to actually ratify.
Right.
3/4 of the states have to agree.
That's a pretty high bar.
It is a high bar.
Yeah.
It was designed to be difficult
Yeah.
to change,
But not impossible.
but not impossible.
And thank goodness for that. Can you imagine if we were just stuck with the original document and none of the amendments?
That's a scary thought.
That's a whole other deep dive.
Yeah.
So, okay, moving on, Article 6.
Okay, so Article 6, this is where we establish the Constitution, federal laws, and
Yeah.
treaties as the supreme law of the land.
Okay.
This is what's known as the Supremacy Clause.
Right.
It's about establishing this hierarchy of authority.
So basically, if a state law clashes with a federal law,
Yeah.
the feds win.
That's right. Yeah, no confusion there.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward.
And it's also here in Article 6 where we find that no religious test clause.
Oh, yeah, this is
This
important.
is a cornerstone of religious freedom in America.
Mm-hmm.
So this prohibits requiring any kind of religious test for holding public office.
Which, back then, that was a pretty radical idea.
Absolutely.
This separation of church and state.
Yeah, a bold statement about religious liberty,
Right.
making sure that the government couldn't favor one religion over another
Mm-hmm.
or force its beliefs on anybody.
Right. Okay, so last but not least, Article 7.
All right. The grand finale, Article 7.
Grand finale.
Short and sweet. It just outlines how we're going to ratify the Constitution.
I bet there are lots of signatures and quill pens and all that.
You could say that.
Yeah.
So Article 7 says that it goes into effect after being ratified by 9 of the 13 original states.
9. That's not even all of them.
Not all of them,
Yeah.
but they had to get this new government up and running.
They knew they had something special on their hands.
They did.
Okay, so now we're getting to the part that everybody's probably been waiting for,
Yes.
and that's the Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments.
Yeah, those first 10 amendments that guarantee some of our most basic freedoms.
The foundation of individual liberty.
Yeah. Why is this so important?
Well, it's important because it protects individuals
Mm-hmm.
from government overreach.
Mm-hmm.
And, these were added shortly after the Constitution was ratified,
Right.
partly to appease those who were worried about a too powerful central government.
Yeah, they were like, we like the Constitution, but we need some extra safeguards in there.
Exactly. And these cover everything from freedom of speech and religion
Mm-hmm.
to the right to bear arms,
Mm.
protection from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Right, and these are all things that we're still debating and discussing to this day.
Yeah, the bedrock of individual liberty in the United States.
It's incredible how these amendments, written so long ago,
I know.
are still so relevant today. I mean, they've really stood the test of time.
They have, and each generation seems to find new meaning and new relevance in these rights.
Right.
It's really about their enduring power and this conversation about how they should be applied in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah, it's like the Bill of Rights is having its own deep dive
Yeah.
over time, Okay, but let's not forget about the other 17 amendments.
That's right. We can't forget those.
The Bill of Rights gets a lot of the glory,
Yeah.
but these later amendments really show how the Constitution has adapted
Yes.
and how our values have changed as a nation.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They really do tell the story of America's journey
Yeah.
from abolishing slavery
Mm-hmm.
to granting women the right to vote.
Yeah.
It shows how the Constitution can be a force for progress and for equality.
And that progress, it didn't come easy. It took years of struggle,
Absolutely.
activism to get these things done.
Years of struggle and activism. And the Constitution, with its ability to be amended,
Right.
provides the framework for making that happen.
Yeah. So you've got the 13th Amendment. It abolished slavery,
Yes,
changed the face of America forever,
absolutely.
really addressed one of the darkest chapters of our history.
Yeah. And then you've got the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection and due process of law to all citizens.
Mm.
It's one of those amendments that it just had this ripple effect
Yeah.
throughout our legal system.
What a pivotal moment.
It was. It really changed the relationship between the federal government and the states,
Right.
extending those crucial rights
Right.
to all citizens, regardless of their race or previous condition of servitude.
And, of course, the 19th Amendment.
Yeah.
Giving women the right to vote.
After decades of activism and struggle.
It's amazing, all those women who fought so hard. And, you know, it makes you appreciate all the effort that went into making our democracy more inclusive.
Absolutely.
But we're not done. We've got more amendments.
We've got more amendments to explore. So we have the 26th Amendment,
Yeah.
which lowered the voting age to 18.
Right. Giving young people a voice
Yeah.
in the political process.
Yeah. And then there's the 27th Amendment,
Okay.
which deals with congressional pay raises. Kind of a quirky one.
It's not the most exciting topic, but I guess even Congress needs some oversight
They do,
when it comes to their salary.
You know, compared to some of the other amendments, it seems like a small detail,
Right.
but it reflects a really core principle
Okay.
that those in power shouldn't be able to enrich themselves without accountability.
Timeless concern.
Timeless concern.
All right. So these amendments spanning 2 centuries really tell the story of America's evolution.
Yes.
Its struggles, its triumphs, this constant push towards a more perfect union.
Yeah. And that journey continues today. You know,
Yeah.
we're still grappling with questions about how to interpret the Constitution,
Yeah.
how to apply its principles
Right.
to all the challenges that we face in the 21st century.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
We need to pause here
Take a breather.
to let it all sink in. Join us for the final part of our deep dive,
Absolutely.
where we'll wrap things up
Yes.
and explore what it really means to have a living constitution. Okay, so we're back
Yeah,
for the final part of our deep dive
that's right.
into the U.S. Constitution.
It's been quite a journey,
It has.
but we made it.
We made it
The
here.
summit.
At the summit.
We can see the whole landscape now.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm a little awestruck, you know? Just thinking about how these framers were so brilliant and had so much foresight to create something that is still relevant today.
It is remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
To think that this document
Yeah.
that's over 200 years old
Mm-hmm.
still holds so much weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is a testament to its principles and its ability to adapt to changing times.
And speaking of adapting,
Okay.
one of the things that always gets me is this idea of the Constitution as a living document.
Yes.
It's a phrase we hear all the time, but what does that even mean?
Yeah, that is a great question. And it's one that's at the heart of a lot of these constitutional debates.
Yeah.
So this idea of a living constitution suggests that the meaning isn't fixed. It evolves through interpretation, through amendments, through how it's applied to new challenges.
So it's not like we're just blindly following some dusty old rule book.
Not at all.
Okay, good.
It's a framework, and it requires us to really engage with its principles, debate its meaning, wrestle with how it applies to the issues we face today.
Right.
It's like a conversation, right?
Yeah.
That's been going on for centuries, and we're all a part of it.
It really does make you think about what issues would really make the framers
Yeah.
scratch their heads, you
Yeah.
know? What are the things they could never have anticipated?
Oh, I think there are many.
Yeah.
You know, the rise of technology, for example,
Right.
has raised so many questions about privacy, free speech,
Oh, yeah.
government surveillance
That they never could even imagine.
that they never could have imagined.
I mean, the internet, social media,
Right.
artificial intelligence,
It's a whole different world.
it's a whole different world that's constantly changing how we live and how we interact with each other, how we work.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as these technologies keep developing,
Right.
we're going to need to find a way to apply the principles of the Constitution
Yeah.
to these new realities, you
It's
know?
this constant process of
Yeah.
interpretation and reinterpretation.
So what does this all mean for the average person who, you know, maybe isn't thinking about constitutional law every day?
Okay.
How can we participate in this living conversation?
Well, I think it means that we all have a role to play in shaping how the Constitution is understood and how it's applied.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, by engaging in these conversations, by being informed,
Yeah.
participating in the political process,
Right.
even challenging interpretations that we don't agree with.
Yeah.
We're all part of this dialogue.
It is really empowering to think that,
Yeah.
we're not just passively receiving this document,
Yeah.
but we're actually participants
We are, yeah.
in how it evolves.
Yeah. The Constitution isn't just this piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
It reflects our values. It reflects our aspirations as a nation.
Right.
And ultimately, its future depends on us,
Yeah.
the people, to uphold its principles,
Okay.
to make sure that it continues to serve its purpose.
This has been quite a journey.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just the beginning,
Yeah.
Now that I've got this framework in my head,
Yeah.
I'm ready to start exploring specific areas that I'm interested in,
Yeah.
like the debates about its interpretation or even potential future amendment.
And that's the beauty of it. This deep dive was just a starting point.
Yeah.
Now it's up to all of you listening to keep exploring, to delve deeper into the areas that really resonate with you.
Right.
And, join this ongoing conversation about the Constitution's role in our nation's future.
So to our listeners out there, keep digging, keep questioning, keep those brain cells firing.
Yes.
The U.S. Constitution is there waiting to be
discovered,
debated, cherished by each new generation.
And who knows, maybe you'll be the one leading a deep dive into this fascinating and ever-evolving document.
That's right.
Someday.
All right, that's it for our deep dive into the U.S. Constitution.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.